just while we're waiting there, I can see the names coming up there of nearly everybody. So we'll just note for attendance, but there's one phone number. It's a landline ending in 28. Two, three. Sorry, I'm getting some feedback here.
Tom Coleman.
Hi, Tom. How are you? Thanks for that. Tom, could I just ask you to go on mute, if you wouldn't mind? There might be a small bit of feedback.
Right, okay, no problem.
Thank you. Okay, Martha, are we good to go? Great stuff. Okay, so can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, firstly, I just want to welcome you all to our first Community Safety Forum for Cork North. Sorry, I'm having a lot of problems, Marius. I'm getting a lot of feedback here.
We can hear you fine anyway, Adrian, from our side.
I'll try this. You can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try again. Okay. Right, I'll try again. What's happening is there's a delay in the line and it's being fed back to me, so I'm talking over myself. So
Adrian, sorry, it's Shauna here in ICT. It's probably due to the phone line, I would say, if it's muted now. So maybe try again.
okay, Shauna, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly now, and there's no feedback on my end.
Great. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, false start, everyone. Well, first of all, good evening to everybody and thank you all for coming along today. No, sorry, I'm still getting feedback, Shauna. It's repeating back on me. I might just...
Everybody looks to be on mute anyway, so there shouldn't be too much feedback. Do you want to try without the headset again? It might.
Yeah, what I might actually do is I might leave the meeting and I'll log back in again because there's obviously a delay somewhere along the line.
Adrian, if you want, I can start while you log off and log back on.
Martha? Thank you.
Yeah, no bother at all. Yeah. Okay, well, hopefully we can get this ironed out so that Adrian can take up the chair again. But just for now, to reiterate, welcome everyone to this evening's meeting. And thank you to our colleagues in ICT for running interference on this in this instance. Hopefully we'll get things up and running again. I'd just like to welcome everyone here. Welcome to our councillors and our colleagues on Garda Síochána who have worked closely with us to bring the first online community safety forums of 2021 and indeed ever, I believe, to the city. So tonight we'll be looking at issues across Cork North to line up with the Cork North community policing engagement areas. We're just going to ask everyone to stay on mute for as long as possible just to eliminate as much feedback as we can. And there will be opportunity throughout the meeting for feedback once the Garda and Council issues have been addressed. So I'd ask everyone, if you do have something to contribute, if you could just raise your hand, then the chair, Adrian, hopefully when she's back in the loop, can allow for everyone. Are you happy enough, Adrian, to pop back in? Are you going to?
I found the problem, Shauna. Thank you.
Okay, I'll hand back over to you.
So look, Mark has probably told you my name is Adrian Rogers. For those of you who haven't met me before, I'm Director of Services with responsibility for the JPC and Community and Social Inclusion in Cork City Council. I suppose I just want to say a huge thanks to everybody for coming along today. Obviously to welcome our colleagues, Superintendent Glen O'Sullivan and his team in An Garda Síochána. I want to welcome the chairs of the community safety forums across the city and obviously on the north side tonight. And I want to also welcome the elected representatives. Thank you all for taking the time to be here. I suppose we're very much aware that the community safety forums have been keenly missed, I suppose, due to the COVID. So I suppose really tonight and tomorrow night and Thursday night are our response to try and provide local communities with an opportunity to feed their issues into An Garda Síochána and ourselves. And we've been working over the last few weeks just to put in place this event, I suppose, to allow for that. I want to thank everybody for the number of submissions that they made. We received over 150 submissions on the online platform, so that engagement was hugely positive. And An Garda Síochána and ourselves have been working through those submissions over the last week or so to prepare a response for tonight. I suppose just to bear in mind, there were a lot of responses received. There were a lot of, I suppose, duplication and replication from certain areas of the city. So what An Garda Síochána and ourselves have done is we have pooled those issues for the areas to ensure that we can speak to each of those tonight, because we won't be able to go through each single question that was received, giving the number. So I hope that'll be okay. I suppose the format for tonight is not to allow for additional questions because we already have those in advance. But if there are any kind of comments or reflections or clarifications that people would like to seek, then certainly we will deal with them. I'm going to ask An Garda Síochána to make their presentation first, and then we in Cork City Council will make ours, and then I will open it up to the floor if people would like to make any, as I said, comments or seek clarifications. What I would ask is, I would hope that I won't keep people for any longer maybe than an hour this evening. And if you are making a comment or seeking clarification, that you might minimise it to the 2 minutes. And I'll just give everybody a reminder if they're going beyond that time. So I'd appreciate it if you could hear to that. So as I said, the running order for tonight will be the Gardaí first, ourselves and Cork City Council, comments and clarifications, and then we can close out the meeting. So I suppose without further ado, I'm just going to hand over now to Superintendent Glen O'Sullivan there to lead out on Garda Síochána's presentation. Thank you all.
Okay, thanks, Adrian. And sorry, no, I had a bit of technical difficulties there. I had to jump into another one there at last minute, so I'm probably coming up as Sergeant Dave Noonan there on the slide. But look, great, and it's thanks for inviting us. And I think this is the first one, not only in the city but possibly in the country, of these online community safety forums, and it's great to be involved in it. And again, thanks to the City Council for facilitating it and for processing all the submissions. I think we got over 45 in relation to the north side of Cork City. And in relation to dealing with all those issues tonight and all those submissions, I've brought along Inspector Sean McCarthy, who worked Sergeant Brendan from Grana Braher, Harry Murphy, and I think we'll go through all the submissions. As I say, we have bundled them geographically in relation to common problems in certain areas or overlapping of certain submissions, and we hope to deal with them all. I suppose just before I get into the submissions, just to give everybody that's listening an overview of the policing of the north side of Cork City, especially since the 1st of January 2021, where there was, from our perspective, there was quite a significant change, that the Ballincollig area has now moved in under Tokers, the superintendent in Toker, and myself and my team on the north side are just responsible for the policing of everything basically north of the river. Okay, so that's from Glenmire, Mayfield, Watercourse Road, Grona Blarney, and out as far as Carricknavar. And I suppose that's just important to note the melancholic aspect of what we normally policed up here for the last 35 years. That's gone to the south side now. And that has made a very positive impact from my perspective in able to amalgamating resources on the north side and getting a better response time to people. And I suppose, again, just to overview, there are 6 stations that I've just mentioned. 5 of them are open 24/7. With the exception of Carricknavar, where we have members working 24 hours a day. And in 2 of those stations, in Mayfield and Grona, we have access to the public 24 hours a day. But there is Gardaí working in all 5 stations. When I say working in the stations, I mean they're in the patrol cars attached to those stations. But that's just to give you an overview, just maybe a change that happened there in January. So what I'm proposing to do, and I've met with my team yesterday, we've gone through the different bundles, and I'm going to get Sergeant Terry Murphy to deal with the issues that arose and I'll just basically read out the bundles of submissions as we got them, okay? We had a few issues in relation to Glen Valley Park, some in relation to Glenmire and manpower there. We had other issues in relation to Upper Lower Beg, Silver Springs Avenue. There was quite a number of issues in relation to Kinvara Avenue, Torndale Estate area, in Glen Heights Road, Spring Lane halting site. We had Seminary Road, Redemption Road, Tannery Gardens, Cushing Road, and that Farnry area. We had the Blackpool, and in particular the Blackpool Plaza, which was raised a couple of times. We had Ballyvalan, Brookvale, and that Banduff area got a mention from at least 3 submissions. Bellsfield, Inspector McCarthy will deal with that. We then had issues in relation to National Bourne, Ashmount Mews, Glenmont in Tivoli, Ballinderry Park in Mayfield, and also then in relation to Spriggs Road in Grona. So we're going to deal with all of them, and I'm hoping that the way we're doing it answers the people's that submitted questions and submissions, that we give them some answers and tell them about the policing response in those areas. I think that's the purpose of these meetings, and we're hoping for some feedback in relation to that. So what I'll do first is I'll call on Sergeant Terry Murphy just to give an overview of the submissions that relate to his area of policing, and I'll come back in at the end and by way of a wrap up, if that's okay.
Thanks.
Terry Murphy is my name. I'm the Sergeant in charge of Watercourse Road Garda Station. I'll go through the points raised by the super kind of as we bundle them. The first one that comes up a lot is Kinvara, and what I would refer to as the Crested Dublin Hill. That's everything from Ballincolly Road across the IDA, the lands by Delaney's Hurling and Football Club. All of that has been a problem for us and for the community there for a long while. We are giving resources to it. We are, over the last number of weekends, when we've had public order units out, we've put them up there. What we are asking is that people continue to report everything. We are reactive. It is the nature of policing, is the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And unfortunately, people will have to continue reporting things as they happen. What's happening in Kinvara is no different to a lot of built up residential areas where there are young people. COVID has changed habits of young people a lot. Drinking isn't confined, bush drinking as it would be called, isn't confined to under 18s anymore. We've noticed the wastelands with the IDA in behind Delaney's Hurling and Football Club. A lot of young adults are gathering and going in there. It is a big area. Very often we are chasing kids from one area into the next because of the open layout of it. But I would just ask the residents and everybody just to keep the calls coming. Calls are recorded, they're documented. We can count them, and again, the nature of it is the squeaky wheel that gets the oil. The next one I'll move on to is Glen Valley Park. Again, COVID and change of habits brought a lot of people into that area that hadn't been in there regularly. With that, of course, came antisocial behaviour. We have increased mountain bike patrols and foot patrols of the area. I would say the place is locked at night for good reason. We do have an access gate, an access key to get in one of the gates there. But again, you know, people have to be considerate of their own safety as well going into a place like that at night. But again, report everything. And when I say report things, I mean report it to An Garda Síochána and not necessarily through social media or Facebook, which happens a lot. Them social media platforms are not monitored all the time. Next area I have is the Farnreed. There's a number of Seminary Road. A lot of areas, Farnreed, Seminary Road, that area. We have had antisocial behaviour issues there. There's a couple of submissions related to specific houses. I won't be going into specific houses or specific individuals. I would just ask if people have a specific complaint or report to make, they do it either to ourselves or through the community guards or at a station. I'm not going to discuss specific houses publicly. Whoever made the submissions in relation to Farnreed will know one of the houses has been acted on very recently. I won't go into any more detail on that one. The area of dumping and fly tipping has come up a lot. We have done a number of recent operations with City Council. We haven't given them huge publicity at the time because we don't want to alert people to them. But we have done a number of operations where there will be fines under the Litter Act. We've targeted illegal waste collection that leads to fly tipping around the place. The Blackpool Plaza is mentioned and comes in a few submissions. Again, that's an area we have reacted to it. We have had a number of arrests there. It is something I will ask that people keep putting the calls in when needs be. Related to that, of course, is the Commons Inn, which has come up in a submission. There are people being housed there at the minute. It is not a permanent plan to have them there all the time. So that side of it is under review. I'm hoping I didn't miss anything now because I went through quickly enough. Spring Lane got a mention, particularly with regards to dumping and antisocial behaviour. It is getting attention. There has been a reduction, I would like to think. The Ellis's yard is still clean. That was a major issue at a former number of years ago. There was a mention of speeding in Glen Heights Road. That has been passed on to the Roads Policing Unit. As regards a Gatso van or a GoSafe van, it's not as simple as dropping one of them there. That's done through an existing collision-prone location risk assessment, but they are going to target the area for speed checks from time to time. I've gone through a number of areas quickly enough. I would ask residents' associations in particular that aren't in contact with their community guards to make contact with them. We have had a lot of successes with residents in a lot of areas. We have a lot of close communication with residents through the community guards. It's my job as the sergeant in charge to highlight problems and to highlight issues so that it gets attention. So that's all I have.
Thanks for that, Terry. Can you hear me? Yeah, thanks for that. I'll hand you over now to Sergeant Dave Noonan from Mayfield Garda Station, just in relation to the submissions in relation to Mayfield.
Thanks, Superintendent. Hello, everyone. My name is Sergeant Dave Noonan. I'm the Sergeant in charge of Mayfield Garda Station. I suppose first and foremost, I just want to acknowledge and thank all those people who made submissions to the Safety Forum this evening. I suppose I have gone through the various submissions as they relate to my area of responsibility, and I suppose in particular the areas that were highlighted were Ballinderry Park and the estates running adjacent to the North Ring Road, Tivoli and Silver Springs area, and the estates along Banff Road, such as Brookvale or Noree. I reviewed the predominant issues that were highlighted on the submissions, and in my mind there was three main themes running through most of the submissions, and they all relate to antisocial behaviour, the use of scramblers within housing estates, and the handling or use of controlled substances and drug dealing in particular locations. So I suppose from my point of view, we have tackled these issues, and we've been tackling them for a long time in a number of ways, and we use a mix of covert and overt policing to address them. So what I mean by overt policing, I'm talking about uniform patrols. So we're looking at mountain bike patrols, foot patrols, which are carried out by our community Gardaí, and Gardaí attached to what we would call the regular units. They're the Gardaí that the response units that attend to calls on a 24-hour basis. Those responses are then supplemented and complemented by members of the detective branch and members of the local drugs unit, who are tasked specifically with the detection and prevention of crime and I suppose the detection of the illicit use of controlled substances within communities. So on top of that, then we also employ a regional public order unit that has become more predominant within the city in the last number of weeks with I suppose the easing of COVID regulations, and they are a valuable resource as well that are available to us and are utilised on a regular basis, particularly at weekends when I suppose the demand for such units are strongest. I suppose I would urge people living within the communities of Mayfield to report all incidents to An Garda Síochána via the 999 lines, for the simple reason that, look, we want to provide a strong and efficient and effective service to the communities. We can only provide that service when we know that there are particular problems affecting particular communities. We keep an eye to hotspots within my particular area and within all my colleagues' areas, and we target limited resources accordingly. And what I mean by that is that the units within Garda stations are briefed every evening by their unit sergeants, and during the course of those briefings, these hotspots are highlighted for special attention throughout the course of their tour of duty. So I would just urge people to continue to report problems to us. It may take more than a week or 2 weeks for us to resolve the issue, but we will get there in the end. But it does need people to be reporting it consistently to us. So I would urge anybody on the call there, or any heads of residents associations, to keep reporting matters to us. We've had a lot of success in particular communities over the last number of months where issues have been consistently highlighted to me and to my team in Mayfield Garda Station. That is really all I have to say. I thank you for your time. I'll pass you over to the Superintendent again now. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Dave. And what I'll do next, I'll hand you over and keep it going to Sergeant Kelly from Gronabrar, who will deal with the issues in relation to Nash's Boreen and Briggs Road.
Hello, everybody. Sergeant Brendan Kelly. I'm in Gronabrar Garda Station. To echo what previous speakers there, the issues raised for the Gronabrar area concern again scramblers, and especially in the areas Briggs Road and Nash's Boreen. We've also had other issues in Nash's Boreen in relation to the burning of cars, and that made the local media in the recent past. In relation to Nash's Boreen, first, it's an area that I suppose is an amenity area. It's a residential area for the most part. And I suppose what the issues that have been raised in relation to it has served to highlight the opening of the road maybe a couple of years ago, and it certainly is attracting maybe the scramblers and the use of vehicles in recently to traverse the Boreen. Now, we would certainly be looking forward to exploring with Cork City Council and the residents in exploring the closing of this road in future. Obviously, there's a legal basis on that, and we look forward to supporting any projects in that regard. In relation to the burning of the vehicles recently, we hope that investigation is actually very active, and we hope, I suppose, following a good line of inquiry there. So we hope to have a bit of news on that in the near future. Spriggs Road, again, the issue with scramblers, again, is using an amenity area in the public area of the 50, 51, 52 steps is an issue. It's an area that is probably finding hard to patrol, but I suppose local residents may have hopefully seen more foot traffic there in the recent past in beat patrols, and we continue to target that area. And again, like our previous speakers, we would just say to plead to the residents in all areas just to continue to let us know, continue to report these issues, the way we may tackle them in the future. So that's all from me. So I'll pass you back to the superintendent. Thank you.
You're on mute there, Declan. Declan, you're on mute there. Can you hear me? Declan, can you hear us? Okay, so we can't hear you. You're still on mute. Can you unmute?
Yeah. Sorry, I think I might have been there with my own camera. I'm just using Terry Murphy there. I'm an inspector here for community engagement Northside. And I'm here to speak about the Glenmire area in particular and issues that are arising there. I suppose most noticeably is Church Hill and Castle Jane and Barnabara, all around that area. I suppose the population has increased dramatically there, and the age demographic has certainly come into the teenage years. So there are other issues there with people hanging around the evening here, I suppose, especially with COVID at present, and it's an issue that we're having right across the city, not just the north side or south side, but unfortunately places have been closed recently. There's nowhere to go. We do have young people out in the streets in the evening time. They are socialising, they are drinking, and we certainly acknowledge that. And we acknowledge that there are difficulties in many areas across the north side. As Sergeant Noonan specifically has alluded to, we have extra public order units on at the weekends. They are targeting areas for antisocial behaviour, such as the Woods and Brook Lodge, and we also have O'Callaghan Park. They're getting out of the vans there, they're patrolling the areas, they're walking in through these areas. These are the hotspots that we've identified from weekly management meetings and from complaints that we're getting from the public. They're added to the list on a weekly basis, and that's continuously reviewed. So we would urge the public to please let us know if there's a problem in the area. And as someone else already said, we do get messages through Facebook every now and again, but we much prefer to contact the local guards through the residents associations, which are doing fantastic work out there, and to liaise through those people with the local community guards. We have local community guards right across the north side, and they are available to the public, and it's just to make contact with them. We've Sergeant John Dwyer there is in charge of community policing across the north side, and we just want to keep that engagement going. We certainly lost a lot of contact perhaps through COVID in the last year and a half, unfortunately. But again, we've been out there, the Meals on Wheels, we have a lot of volunteers there, we have a lot of community guards, took up that role during COVID, and I suppose they're continuing to do it. But we just want to acknowledge all of that great work that is being done. And we are engaging with the elderly across. If there's anyone knows that feels isolated, we have guards that can call there, that can provide these extra resources to them. And we're just urging people to perhaps engage a bit more with their local community guards or local guard stations. With Glenmire itself, we have opened, the station itself is opened a lot more than what it would have been previously. There are 3 people gone there to permanently open the station. So it is open to the public a lot more than what it used to be. And we do realise Glenmire is expanding at a dramatic rate with new housing estates, and certainly the age demographic, the teenagers, there is increased reports of antisocial behaviour. But I said already, these issues are being tackled. There was also an issue of speeding in the Church Hill, Castle Jane, Barnabara Hill areas. Again, that is a new issue to us. It hasn't been reported previously, or we hadn't noticed it previously, but certainly it's something that we will address in the future. Thanks a million for your time. I'll hand you back to Superintendent O'Sullivan. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now, Adrian?
Perfect, Declan, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, look, that was an overview of the submissions. I suppose just to I suppose the benefit of this from my perspective and my team's perspective is the 45 submissions that we've got will feed directly into the policing plans for the north side from the day we got them, and they already have as of 2 days ago, and in the weeks and months ahead. And anything fresh we get as a result of this meeting or any other meetings or any direct contact members of the public or elected representatives has with the community Gardaí or emails that we get in, that all feeds in directly on a daily basis, changing the way we police on a daily basis and where we police and where we deploy resources. We are very busy, there's no doubt about that. I think we're going to get busier once the economy starts to open up again next month. We're going to get a lot busier. But look, I hope through this evening, we've answered some of the queries. We probably haven't provided permanent solutions to lots of areas, but we are conscious of them, and by raising them in this forum, as I say, they do get onto our agenda every day. We do have a management meeting every day where we deploy resources, and I hope you keep feeding into that, because we're here to provide the service, for the people on the north side. So that's all I wanted to say in the presentation. I don't know, is that the format that you wanted, but this is the first time we're doing this tonight, so hopefully it'll be the start, and hopefully we'll get back to the face-to-face meetings in the autumn if we're allowed. I think they possibly work better, Is that okay, Adrian?
That's great, Declan. Thank you, and thanks to all the team there for responding to those issues. And look, as you said, I think we just have to acknowledge this is our first time actually attempting something like this. So I suppose after the meeting this evening, we'd really welcome any feedback from anybody, things that have worked, things that haven't worked, etc. And so look, we'd welcome that, and I'll just remind people, I suppose, just Inspector Sean McCarthy there, you mentioned COVID, and I suppose just to remind people that the community response teams have not gone away. They're still very active on the ground, so that if there are people out there that need to reach out to them, and obviously the community Gardaí are a very important part of that whole response team on the ground. So just make sure that that's communicated back to everybody, that they're still there, we're still providing supports, and it's really important that you contact somebody if needs be. We can be contacted through the COVID helpline, or alternatively you can ring the CSU, the Customer Service Unit in Cork City Council on 4924444, and the agents there will actually log and record any calls that come in. So I suppose in addition, if there are questions maybe that people have that haven't been dealt with tonight, then they can also be forwarded on to the CSU, and they will actually record those questions and make sure that they're forwarded to the correct people to have them dealt with. I suppose the other piece is after tonight, we will be feeding back to all the chairs of the Community Safety Forum as well, just to make sure that they know what the issues are and what we're doing with them, and we'll try to maintain that communication channel with them, because I think communication is a huge thing, and I think that's what I'm hearing from the Gardaí here as well. The reporting and the communication is hugely important, and it has to be done right and managed well. I see a number of hands up there. Councillor John Maher, Councillor Mike Nugent and Councillor Keno Flynn, are you okay to wait until Cork City Council makes its presentation, and then I'll come to you? Perfect. And just before we make the presentation on Cork City Council, I'm aware that the Lord Mayor has joined us. And Lord Mayor, I don't know if you want to say a couple of words just about this first Community Safety Forum online.
Thanks, Adrian. And listen, I think as the Superintendent said, this is a first, and Cork is doing a lot of firsts lately, given the COVID pandemic. And I want to compliment the Gardaí for fantastic work right across the city. We've had a very difficult year, and I know that resources are quite limited, but in fairness, their response time and everything else, in my experience anyway, in contacting the Gardaí has been excellent, and I've been engaging with the community police Mick O'Connell in particular, and right across in Mayfield, in my local area. And look, we've had difficult and we've had a lot of challenges in places like new areas such as Bellsfield, you know, Ashmount Mews were mentioned as well. And my main concern, I suppose, and my concern for the Gardaí as well, would be that it could be overrun for the summer months, because a lot of the problems are stemming from people who are actually under 18 and wouldn't be going into pubs anyway. So the large gatherings of young people, you know, does present a lot of challenges. So I just want to compliment the Gardaí, and as well as that, the way they've reimagined themselves and got stuck into things like Meals on Wheels and lots of other things, delivering prescriptions and all that sort of stuff, and making people feel that they're not isolated, and which is of critical importance. And I've been shouting from the rooftops for many months that, in my opinion, the Gardaí should have been vaccinated as a frontline organisation, because there's no other organisation in the country, apart from doctors and nurses, other than the Gardaí that are frontline, you know. So the Gardaí are as frontline as you'll ever get. It has I've written to the Minister for Justice about it. I got a letter back, which I wasn't satisfied with, so I wrote again, to be quite frank and honest with you, because I do support 100% the effort that the Gardaí are doing. Without the Gardaí, our society would break down as we know it. So thank you for everything you've done to date, and any support you need from me, you know where I am. Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. So I suppose now, just for the next segment there, I might hand over to Sandra O'Mara. Sandra is part of the Community and Social Inclusion team in Cork City Council. Thanks, Sandra.
Thanks, Adrian. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Perfect. So I'm going to respond to some of the issues that were raised in the northwest area of the city, and then my colleague Stephen will come in after me to just focus on the northeast of the city, if that's okay. So as was said at the start, there was quite a significant number of different areas of concern raised, so I won't be going through them individually, but I will group them together. So just in relation to, we had a number of concerns around dog fouling in the city. So just to say that we did run and have an enhanced anti-dog fouling awareness campaign that was launched in March of this year. And the messaging was spread right across all the local radio stations, together with advertising across the city bus shelter network promoting responsible dog ownership. And I'm aware that the Lord Mayor also wrote all of the primary schools in the city, inviting them to participate in this year's primary schools anti-dog fouling poster competition. So in addition to the education and encouragement aspect, the Litter Warden Service does carry out enforcement activities to combat the dog fouling across the city. So what we would say is, you know, all of our public bins can be used to dispose of dog fouling as well as any other litter, and we would just promote people to, you know, if there isn't a bin around, to bring it home with you, and to I suppose work towards being, you know, encouraging responsible dog ownership. So that was one of the issues that would have come up. Another issue would have been around dumping and fly tipping, and again what we would encourage people to do would be to log that with the customer service line 021 492 4000. So all of the issues in relation to dumping, dog fouling or fly tipping have all been logged with our colleagues in operation, and they're all being investigated. But we would encourage people, you know, going forward, as you see it, to just ring the line and it's logged. You then have a case number and we can follow it up with you. In terms of, just keep going here now. So any specific, as the Gardaí said themselves, any specific issues in relation to a tenant or antisocial behaviour, they will be contacted by the area housing office to support them in terms of bringing that forward. In terms of the Green Spine initiative, there was a submission from the Green Spine project in the Gronbraher Churchfield area in relation to looking at increasing litter bins. So Rapid will continue to work with and support the Green Spine initiative, and we will examine with our colleagues in operations the request for additional bins there to support that project in terms of enhancing the Gronbraher Churchfield area. In terms of, just keep going now, there is a number of submissions that were made in relation to Cologne in Blarney. So rather than going through each of them, what I will say is that we've had a number of representations, and our colleagues in operation are aware of the challenges in relation to Cologne, and we're working very closely with our colleagues in Garda Síochána in terms of any road safety issues to try and come to a suitable solution there, but what we would say is as issues arise, please do ring the number and log them. For some of these issues that came through, it was the first time the area engineer would have heard of it, and for some others we're working continuously to look at those issues. Sorry now. In relation to Nash's Boreen, again, as our colleagues in the Garda Síochána stated, we're working and we have worked closely with the community and the residents in Nash's Boreen, and I suppose it has been examined, the issues that have been brought up in relation to antisocial behaviour and scrambling and traffic are being examined by the senior management here within Cork City Council, and working in partnership with their colleagues in Garda Síochána to support the community in Nash's Boreen. This is an issue that has been ongoing for them for a number of years, so we continue to work in partnership with them. And then the only other issue then we have is in relation to litter issues across the city. Again, they've all been logged with operations, and we would encourage people again to ring the 492 4000 number for the customer service. And if there's any support people need in relation to the COVID support line, it's 1-800-222-226. So I'm going to hand you over. That's the Northwest. I flew through it there now, but we've grouped them in, and my colleague Stephen Murphy will speak to you about the issues in the Northeast. Thanks.
Thanks, Sandra. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to go through some of the issues that we received from the northeast of the city. So as Sandra said, a lot of the issues dumping related to fly tipping and dumping and the likes of that should be passed on and logged with the customer service phone number, as Sandra just outlined there. So the first one is just that. So we've had some issues around illegal dumping in the Glen, and also legal dumping was noted at Orchard Court and Seminary Road. And these have been brought. Everything that we received have gone to the relevant directorates within Cork City Council. Sorry, I muted myself by mistake. Sorry, guys. So we have a couple of issues coming up around Bell's Field, and some of the issues with Bell's Field are the fact that, as the Gardaí said, it's been seen a huge increase in the number of people using it. There we had one submission from somebody suggesting that the Bell's Field isn't stated as being an official park by Cork City Council, so this has been passed on to the Parks and Recreation Department for review. And again, a lot of issues around. First of all, a lot of respect for the area in terms of people using it and being respectful, and that is a great spot. But then others dumping. So it's good to note the enjoyment that people have emailed us saying that they really enjoy the area. But again, we would suggest that strongly advise that people log dumping like that with the customer service unit. We had a large number of submissions from Castle Jane in Glenmire, and these were to do with the footpaths and the felt need for a pedestrian crossing on Church Hill, and the extension of double yellow lines, and cars being parked across from the entrance to Castle Jane. So we've passed all of these on to the operations department and the local team there. Bollards have been installed opposite the entrance to Castle Jane and Ardbarra to stop parking and to stop the obstruction to the vehicles exiting the entrances. In 2020, just around the footpaths, in 2020, Glenmire Area Office removed by tender one of the trees and grinded the roots out to free up the footpath from the others. The footpaths, the narrow footpaths, are, we agree, in poor condition, and they're blocked in locations by properties and hedges, but it is our intention to carry out local repairs on these footpaths using our own staff. Okay. So again, as I said, there's a lot in from Castlejane. So just to ensure Castlejane that we have passed everything on to the operations department and the local engineer and the team in the Glenmire area as well. And it is stated that the Glenmire Area Roads Office will assess the footpaths on the L2983 and add upgrade works of the footpaths to the 2022 footpath programme, if applicable, or carry out localised repairs to the footpaths using our own staff. Okay. And sorry, now I'm going to speed up there now. So Kinvara Park Estate in Belvalan, a lot of we've had a number of submissions there around antisocial behaviour, and just to say that they have been passed on, and the area office are reviewing these issues, and Cork City Council will ensure to do their part in association with our colleagues in the Gardaí to try to tackle, do what we can to tackle these issues. Another area that came in a couple of times was the Glen River Park, and again it's good to note that a lot of the submissions around the Glen River Park all commented that it was an amazing amenity to use, and predominantly was a positive thing for people to have it in their area to go for walks and such. There's a number of issues there to do there with dog fouling, and I think Sandra's covered that off already. We've had a dog fouling campaign running for the last while, and there are bins, and those bins can be used for people to dump their dog's litter or bring it home. So one thing to note about the Glen River Park is that a provision for a park ranger at peak times is to be included in the 2022 draft estimates for consideration. So that's the response there from the for our own Parks and Recreation department. So just to say that we got those. So the green, another one that came in was the green area at the top of Richmond Hill. So what is the people living close by were wondering about the area and perhaps putting in a footpath and some lighting. There is no funding available for public lighting at this location at this current time, but it certainly has been logged and it will be considered. So moving on to Mayfield, some calls came in, or some emails came in from Mayfield, Balvalan. Again, the Glen River Park came in, Dublin Hill, West Cross, and Dillon's Cross. A lot of it is around antisocial behaviour again. So again, we will be working with our colleagues in the guards to do what we can to tackle these issues. Somebody mentioned or asked for CCTV, and just to say that CCTV is reviewed on a case-by-case basis, and we certainly will engage to look at this. Okay. Some more came in around fly tipping in the Ballincolly Road, and some antisocial behaviour again. So again, we would encourage people around the fly tipping to log that call with the customer service on the customer service number. Okay. So I know there's a good bit here. I've 2 more pages left. So just some antisocial behaviour there in Briggs Road, and it is noted that there was a couple of cars that have been logged as being abandoned, and that this has been forwarded on to the relevant departments in City Council, and in cases like that, again, when you log a call, you do get a number, and you can ring the helpline to inquire as to where your as to where your case is. So if anybody has a call logged like that, they can chase it up as well. But we will be back to them. So more issues came in around Richmond Hill. It's worth noting that people are very interested in the park there, and people asking for railings to be erected around the Bell's Field, and an entrance gate to be placed in there. So all of these have been sent to parks, and they've been sent to parks for consideration as well. some issues there around hedge cutting in Ordinary, in Farnry, and just to say that we do, while we do cut some green areas across the city, many, in fact most, are maintained by residents and resident associations, and we don't have the resources to maintain all of the green areas, but the overgrowing hedging will be looked into, but currently we don't have the facility to cut all of those hedges across the city, obviously. Okay, almost there. So speeding on the Rathmore Road and Old Yall Road, can we put traffic calming in place? And just to say that all of these roads issues have been passed on to operations, and they have been passed on to operations and to be considered as part of their workload. But just to note, the pressure is there in terms of what they can do currently, especially having just come out of COVID, and also what is actually there in terms of funding to fund these roadworks. The Dublin Pike area also is, I just want to note that as well, along the same lines, Dublin Pike area, we've had people email in and asking for traffic calming and pedestrian improvements, and all of these have been passed on to operations. So I think that's my very long list done there. So I'll hand back over to yourself, Adrian.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. And thanks, Sandra. Appreciate that. I suppose just to, assure everybody that we pass these issues on to operations, but we will be following up with our colleagues in operations, you know, to ensure that there is follow through on these. So, and as I said, we will feed back to the Community Safety Forum chairs. I suppose I've been reminded about a couple of things that I should mention. I suppose, firstly, the Cork Against Litter campaign. Just so everybody knows that that's ongoing. We also have, I suppose, a schools poster competition around dog fouling. So that's being rolled out at the moment. And I suppose on the north side of the city, we also have seen quite a few tidy towns groups sprouting up, and it's always good to see those as well on the ground. It's not just about keeping our area clean either. I think in the times that we're in, it's really good to have that kind of social contact as well through those groups. So if everybody's okay, I might just open up to the floor. I have a number of hands showing there. I'm just going to call them in order, if that's okay. So I might call on Councillor Keno Flynn. You've had your hand up there the longest.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I think there may be a career for you in public life after chairing this meeting. Not that I'd wish it on you, because you're far too much of a nice person. First of all, I just have a question for Superintendent O'Sullivan. You mentioned, Superintendent, that you envision it getting busier for the guards this summer coming out of pandemic. Now, like, to my mind, the guards, their pin has been pushed to the collar, or and how busy you've been and how active you've been in Cork. I'm just wondering, with the economy opening up, with pandemic payments finishing on July 20th and further announcements that are being leaked already on Twitter and social media and the press about the Taoiseach's announcement on Sunday with the economy opening up, how do you see it different and getting busier for you as Gardaí compared to, we'll say, pre-pandemic times? How with the economy open? It's just trying to get my head around it. The other thing that I have noticed as well is, in particular, when it comes to people's awareness of who to call, what to call, the continuous complaints I get as a public rep on the northeast of the city is Mayfield doesn't answer their phone, and you're trying to explain to people from there who don't attend these forum meetings, who aren't listening, who aren't overly engaged in their community. You're trying to explain to them, look, Mayfield, they're processing people. It's an active Garda station. You may be ringing 3 or 4 times before your call gets answered because of how busy they are with the day-to-day work. And I suppose, really, I think what we do have to get out there on social media and Facebook, where people seem to be complaining and assume that somebody via Cork City Council or the guards are monitoring our Facebook and social media when they're making these complaints. I do feel that perhaps if we got a localised set of images that both public representatives, Cork City Council and Gardaí and Facebook could get out those messages of who your local community guard is, who you should be contacting regarding social problems in your area, who is your point of contact and who you should be ringing. A lot of the time I find people say back to me, I don't want to ring 999 because I don't want to waste the 999 system. And you hear that and you know, there's a reluctance of ringing 999. And I particularly find that in problems in Dublin Hill and talking to an older generation who don't want to bother people about that. And I just think that we do perhaps need to become a little bit more social media localized as well, with images of this is your community guard for Blackpool, this is your community guard for Mayfield. I'm hearing that, Chairman. You know, definitely there's a life for your public life. And again, I'm just concerned about the amount of drinking on the streets that we have at the moment. And I'd just like to hear your views on that. We have put in bylaws on it, but I don't, it just amazed me the amount of pubs that were serving throughout this entire pandemic. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, because it shocked me to see pubs selling cocktails and takeaway pints from very respectable, well-known establishments in the city that I had a lot more time for in the past rather than now, considering how they behaved. Thanks, Madam Chairperson.
Over to Declan or one of your team.
Okay. Thanks for that, and thanks for Councillor Flynn for the questions, and just to acknowledge the kind words of the Lord Mayor there a few minutes ago, just in support, and we appreciate the support that comes from the Lord Mayor's office. I suppose just to deal with the economy first, Councillor Flynn, I suppose what will change for us is during the pandemic, there was a lot of alcohol being consumed in houses, and when there was restrictions on people's movements, we're anticipating when the pubs, the restaurants, the nightclubs, eventually, you know, theatres, cinemas, places like McCurtain Street, which I'm responsible for, those streets are going to open up. There's going to be a lot more footfall there. There's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of alcohol. Say, if you take McCurtain Street, for instance, from my perspective, there's going to be a lot of alcohol consumed there that wasn't being consumed there 2, 3, 4, 12 months ago, you know, when the place closed down. And that will change the dynamic of the police that I have to provide for McCurtain Street, whereas people might have been buying stuff in off licenses during the pandemic and drinking at home. It will now move outdoors, or sorry, move indoors or in by the pubs, and we're going to have to react to that. We're actively engaging with the Victorian Quarter businesses down there. I've had meetings with them already in relation to who's opening on the 7th of June. Some of them are saying they're waiting until the guidelines come on Friday. Some have decided to open. Some are saying they're not going to open until the indoor drinking is allowed, and they all have to make their own decisions. But I suppose we are anticipating it will get busier for us in a different sense, maybe, and we were busy for the last 12 months. There's no question of that. But I think it will change again, and we're trying to react to that change. I suppose in relation to the phoning the guards and the 999 calls, the reason we're kind of what we're suggesting to people is if you see something happening in front of you, it's preferable for me if you ring 999, because there's dedicated people in Anglesey Street who their sole job is to answer phones. Those calls are recorded, they're logged, they're dispatched out to cars. And you're right in what you're saying. Mayfield and Grona Braher process people that are arrested. It's very busy. It's busy 7 days a week in both those stations in relation to processing people, and that takes a considerable amount of time. You know, when you're dealing with people that have been arrested, and it does take us away from the phones. They do get answered eventually. I'm not saying every time, but from my point of view, you get a better service when you ring Anglesey Street with the 999 system, and then there's a log of the calls, which helps us the morning after to see on our screens and on our systems as to where the calls came in from and how they were answered, how they were dealt with, what are the issues. So what I'd be saying to the residents, if you see something evolving in front of you, whether it be in Kinvara, as you mentioned, or anywhere else, to phone it in 999 for me is preferable. If people don't consider it an emergency, everyone is different as to what they consider emergency. But you know, if they feel it can wait and they can ring the local station later on, that's fine as well. You know, so I hope that answers the questions.
Thanks, Declan. And I suppose in the interest of kind of keeping things moving along, I might take maybe 2 or 3 questions next, and then we might be able to answer all of them together. Just, I suppose, Councillor Flynn there, I suppose when you mention about the social media, the messaging, you know, who should contact who, I think, look, maybe ourselves inside in Community and Social Inclusion, along with Garda Síochána and our communications team, we could certainly sit down and maybe draft something up on that. Okay, so thank you for that. Okay, so can I call Councillor McNugent and then following him, Councillor John Marr? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Adrian, and thanks for the presentations and everybody who put in submissions. I know residents in Nash's-Boreen and Henry and Ballyflan were doing a lot of work getting their submissions in, so fair play to them on that. I suppose just 2 brief questions. One, I suppose, is it possible maybe to get a summary of the presentations this evening? There was a lot of good information there for ourselves, where appropriate, that we can, you know, follow up on ourselves as well. And will it be, I suppose, a follow-up meeting? And it's great that we've had this online opportunity. Will there be a follow-up meeting maybe in 2 or 3 months so we can see what the actions were for the issues that were raised by the residents? And I welcome Sergeant Brendan Kelly's comments there on Nash's-Boreen. I know the City Council will shortly be putting a task force together to look at the issues there, which are significant since the opening of the Holly Hillside to vehicular traffic. So I suppose just to ask, I suppose the super there as well, like City Council recently passed a motion to write to the Garda Commissioner in terms of quads and scramblers. Apparently there is a funds there that Department of Justice and the Guards are administering that will look at an alternative, I suppose, in addressing the misuse of quads and scramblers on public green areas and roads. It's a scheme where we look at a designated area and be funding there for training and, you know, just to keep, I suppose, keep them off the public roads if possible. And hopefully the council will get a response. But anything that the guards locally can do would be great to support that. And just finally, just to appreciate the work of the community response team in the last year, and also the guards as well, the community guards who were assisting with I suppose the food deliveries. I saw that myself through the Cork Penny Dinners Hub at St Vincent's as well. There was great work done by the guards as well in conjunction with all the volunteers. Thanks, I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Councillor Nugent. And I might hand over there now to Councillor Marr.
Thanks, Adrian. Just a couple of items. Again, without going into the number of black spots in the ward, and I'm sure we could all name drop, but we know where they are. And I'm just wondering, in any of them, have we a list of maybe arrests or fines issued, in particular where there's repeat occurrences, you know? And again, this is, some issues are maybe happening because of COVID, but there's a lot of places that aren't across the Northeast ward, and I put them into my submissions. So again, I'm just wondering there, because we can try to engage with whoever's causing the problems, but engagement only gets us so far, and we need enforcement. So I definitely know that when the issues are cropping up every week, week in, week out, I'd just be interested to see, have we made arrests or issued fines from the Gardaí? And again, just from the Guards at a higher level, are we happy in the city that our Gardaí and our numbers are at a level where they want to be, or are we off? In particular now, when we do go back to opening up, and I suppose one concern would be now Bellsfield in particular, that's got a reputation now as a place to go. You know, when you have 150 and 200 people on a given night on the weekend, and I'm just wondering now, with the city centre opening in, which is great, are we going to be compromised, and are we going to be exposed at that level? Again, just to the council, littering, illegal dumping, the dog fouling. We know the issues, but I'm interested again on the fines and what's been issued and how are we tackling it. Because again, we can draw nice pictures and we can put on radio ads, but they're not working. We need to hit people in the pocket. And it did come up last week that the litter warden is going undercover. I don't want to date, but I just want to know, has that happened or is that in process? Again, I don't expect the finer details of it because we want that to remain, I suppose we want to remain the secret so that there's some progress on it. And the last item would be just regards Glen Mount Crest in Tivoli. As for council, there's a gate open there that the lock has been opened by a resident, and I'm just wondering, have we got that closed permanently? Because I know that's probably causing a headache for the Gardaí as well, because it's creating a rat run from the top of Mayfield, Dunard, right down onto Tivoli. But I know that if we got that gate closed, it might help. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Thanks, Councillor Marr. And I might just go to TT Thomas Gould. If you'd like to come in there, Thomas.
Thank you, Adrian. First of all, I just want to thank everyone for tonight's meeting. Also, in particular, to the Gardaí and to our own council staff for the work they've done during the pandemic to keep the show on the road, look after the most vulnerable. And as the Lord Mayor said, without the vaccine, that there were still frontline workers out at the front. So I think everyone really appreciates what you've done during the last 12 months. Just following on from the reports from the different sections, different Gardaí, I agree with Keno Flynn there at the point he made about people. A lot of people don't want to phone 999 because they see 999 as a real serious emergency. And like I hear what the superintendent is saying, and maybe there's a change of culture or attitude needed that we need to tell people to do that, because I know a lot of people for Cork or Mayfield or Glen. So if that's the message that we want to go out, I think that's a message maybe the Gardaí should put out and that we could support them on it and share it. But the big issue here, without a shadow of a doubt, is the antisocial behaviour, the criminality, the gangs. I think we're all in agreement here, who spoke already. I've never seen the likes of it. I've never seen it like this. Maybe it's a combination of COVID, maybe it's a combination of bars or pubs or night or restaurants or even youth clubs or basketball clubs not being open and boxing clubs and all them. But there are really serious issues there right across the, and it's not just a Northside problem. I've been contacted by people right across the city centre and the Southside suburbs. And are you, like Councillor Marr there, are you serious concerns that the Gardaí don't have the numbers in Cork to tackle various levels of antisocial behaviour and criminality? And what I've noticed now, and the people I spoke to, and Councillor McNugent would be the same, is that there's a brazenness and a nastiness now that people don't seem to fear the guards the way they once did, or they don't believe they're going to be caught or convicted. And so I've asked at the recent county policing forum that there would be a plan in place, and that needs to be put out. People need to know, and I'd ask the guards and maybe Cork City Council to issue a statement about how the guards are going to have maybe a very tough policy for the summer to prevent antisocial behaviour and this type of criminality. Just a couple of other small things in relation to dog fouling and in relation to dumping. Simmons Hurling Football Club had a problem with dumping for about 15 years of two particular families. And about 6 weeks ago, we erected our own cameras, and we haven't had one problem with dumping since. Now, there might be issues with GDPR and there might be issues, but we stuck 2 cameras up and the dumping stopped. And we put 2 big signs up, CCTV cameras in place, please stop, say no dumping. And if anyone drives up Kilmore Road, you will see how successful they've been. We need to like, people are really, they want to live in nice communities, they want to have a nice standard of living, and seeing people dumping and dog fouling all over the place. And so I would ask the council, would they, I know there's issues with GDPR, but listen, if someone wants to take the council to court, you can argue the point in court, but not doing nothing, I don't think is an answer. I think we have to go and tackle this head on. And my final point there was in relation to the amount of drug use that's been out in the community. At the recent forum there, the figures for drug use and drug seizures in Cork are astronomical compared to previous years. And communities, I get phone calls from communities, and maybe this is both Cork City Council and the Guard, or people dealing drugs from council houses or private houses. What's being done to tackle their tendencies, because they're destroying communities. So listen, I just want to thank everyone, but like, I've been contacted by communities right across the north side, and they feel under siege at the moment.
Thanks, Thomas. So I suppose taking Councillor Nugent, Councillor Maher and Thomas Gould there, I might hand over to you, Declan. I suppose just before I do, Councillor Nugent, you'd asked about a summary of this evening. We can certainly maybe gather like an overview of all the issues that have been raised. And then you mentioned a follow-up meeting. There'll certainly be a follow-up meeting. I suppose really what we don't know at the moment is whether that meeting will be virtual or physical, and I suppose we'd all be hoping for a physical. But again, I'd welcome any feedback that everybody has. Like if this evening's meeting works for people, you know, there are probably those blended approaches as we move forward that we could all probably incorporate into our working. So Declan, on that, I might just hand over to you on the issues there that were raised by the councillors and Thomas Gould.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian, and thanks for the questions. And as I say, all of this is feeding into everything that's said here, and all the questions, the additional questions, that's all feeding into what we will do on a daily and a weekly and a monthly basis. In relation to the issue of the quads and the scramblers, we will fully support any, and I know there is national initiatives coming and there is new legislation coming. And if there is initiatives by the local council to set up, we will support anything that will help to solve the problem. I can tell you, and as Sergeant Kelly has already said, we're down there a lot. We're doing a lot of checkpoints. We're doing a lot of stopping. We are making arrests to touch on Councillor Maher's issue. We are making arrests, and in all the areas that I mentioned tonight, there have been arrests made. I don't have numbers in front of me, but we are arresting a lot of people for public order. We are bringing them before the courts, and you know that's what we do. And it's over to the judiciary and the legal system then after that. In relation to manpower, there's no superintendent in the country who will tell you he doesn't have enough manpower, and I'm not going to be the odd one out there. What I will say is, as our commissioner has already said, when COVID started, the rosters changed overnight for the guards, which has increased the amount of manpower available to us by going from a 5-unit roster to a 4-unit roster, and that has been beneficial. We have got a lot of extra probationers and recruits into the city in the last 18 months. And unfortunately, Templemore slowed down for a bit. I know it's back up and running again, and we'll be hoping we get more again. But every part of the country is looking for extra manpower. I suppose I forgot to touch on Councillor Flynn's point there in relation to the pubs and the takeaway pints. And to me, there seems to be a contradiction between the city bylaws and then the pubs are legally allowed to sell takeaway pints, and that is just a fact. That is what the legislation says. So we're kind of bound by the legislation. In relation to the 999 calls, again, as Deputy Gould has said, some people are reluctant to phone 999, but from my perspective, it's the safest option to go. And if people, as I say, are seeing something in front of them that they're concerned about, and it's given them enough cause to pick up the phone, and that's the safest option to get through to someone who's dedicated. There's someone there 24/7 answering phones and logging the calls, so there's a record of the calls, and that will eventually get to myself and my management team, and more importantly, it'll get to the patrol cars faster. Drug use, as Deputy Gould also mentioned, is we have a lot of drug seizures. We're very busy. We have I suppose, rejuvenated drug units that hadn't been there in the past, and they are up and running, and they're very busy, and we are getting a lot of help from the community, and that's welcome, and we wish that to continue, because that's part of the solution, is that the Gardaí and the community work together, and that will continue. As I said, the public order, Deputy Gould mentioned, we have already mentioned that we are doing a lot of arrests on a nightly basis in relation to public order. Some people will qualify for what's called adult cautions if they haven't been in trouble before, or they might qualify for a juvenile caution if they're under 18. Other than that, they will be brought to court, they will be charged, they will be brought down to the court. We hold some people overnight, and we bring them down to court the following morning, and that will continue when the need arises. So I think that covers all the points that were raised.
Thanks, Declan. Appreciate that. And I suppose just on Deputy Gould's mention of the CCTV, I suppose you'll be aware that the Department of Justice are currently looking at the legislation around CCTV. I think they've recognised that there are issues on it, and I know that it has been discussed at national level with the CCMA, so we're expecting some guidelines on that, and we'll certainly be looking at those when they're issued fresh. So I suppose I'll just go to Councillor Ted Tynan, and then I'll take Tony Fitzgerald. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. And first of all, it's great to have the community forum up and running again, albeit online, but thanks to everyone concerned. I also like to say a huge thanks to the An Garda Síochána, and I'm basing that on a number of incidents that has occurred in the northeast area over the last number of months. The most serious, the potentially most serious one of them was just after Christmas in an apartment block in Mayfield, where a gang of, I think there was at least 6 adults in a flat there, heavy drinking and drugs or whatever else, but the situation became so serious that a person had to go into the flat and remove a 2-year-old child from the danger zone. And that was at 2 a.m. in the morning. But the Gardaí arrived, and it's nice to see Gardaí can be very polite and gentle at times. But when the need was there that night, they were tough with the guys, and they frog marched, I think there was about 6 of them out, who were maintaining their right to stay in the apartment. The Gardaí frog marched them out onto the footpath and told them they better go home or they'll be heading for the van and spend the night in the Garda station somewhere, you know. So thanks to the Gardaí involved there. Also the local area housing office in Ardvalley, who followed up on a number of issues there over the last couple of months, and they performed very well, excellent. And again, I'd like to thank, I won't mention the name of the guy, like he'd be a bit embarrassed, but say thanks to him anyway for doing their job very well, and it's ongoing, and they're doing good work there. Now, I just want to highlight 2 or 3 flashpoints in the area. I've been contacted by a number of people living in Brookvale. There's a wall between Brookvale and Lease Row. The local people there are prepared to raise the height of the wall, but because of planning regulation, they cannot do that. It's the appropriate height. They cannot put it any higher. If they had it a meter, maybe a meter higher anyway, it would make that the gap between Lease Row and Brookvale far more safer. Also in Brookvale, there's a beautiful green lawn in front of the houses, facing south, facing the bog. There's a bit of a woodland, a tiny, neat little woodland on the edge of that green, backing onto the bog area, and there are gangs gathering in there with drinking parties. They have bits and pieces of furniture in there, an old couch and chairs and stuff like that. They're forcing their way through the little woodland and damaging the trees. And I would appeal to the City Council if something can be done to deny access to that woodland from the green area. Also, back down in Ashmount Mews, I was down there last evening and spent 2 or 3 hours there speaking to a number of people living there. And again, antisocial behaviour is on the increase in that particular area. I met one couple who moved into the area 4 years ago, and for the first time in those 4 years, they are now feeling very unsafe. There's the 2 archways that are down the Mews, well laid out estate, beautifully done, beautiful houses, nicely finished. But those people are now thinking of time to move on and go elsewhere, you know. So, and it's about a number of about 10 or 12. The same gang then were responsible with others for the breaking of a window in Dunard, the burning of rubbish bins, and again, and I would also add to that, I've been speaking to a number of Gardaí, and they will say to me that the resources are not as they should be, that they are short resources. So I would make this appeal again, that if the Gardaí could take that message back to the powers that be in Dublin, that it appears to a number of Gardaí anyway, that they could do with extra numbers and extra resources. So again, I leave it at that, and thanks for your time. Well done, Adrian, anyway. Okay.
Thanks, Councillor Tynan. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thanks, Adrian. It's a very informative meeting, and well done to everybody. I'll just focus on a few specific areas, and we'll keep it along. In relation to Nash's Boreen, I think we're at a stage now where we need intervention with the current owners of the properties there that were previously owned by different people, where there was an injunction made and went to court under the remit of Cork County Council. So I would suggest that maybe, you know, Declan maybe and Adrian yourselves, you come together and negotiate with these landowners to see if they will change their mind in terms of the access to the road that's there, because we've all had meetings up there. We've all been up there. We're taking complaints. The residents are one of the best attendees at community forum meetings down through the years. And I think it's now the problem we've had is the court injunction there at that time. So I think it's time to talk with the people who have the power to change it for us. And I would encourage and propose any intervention there as soon as possible, so that we can address the issue for the residents up there and for people who walk it most evenings, because I think that's the solution to the problem, because there is the goodwill of Cork City Council to put in measures there to make it more environmental friendly and make it, you know, it is a Steenish Loyalty route, and I think the resources are there to do that if we can do that. The second point is on the scramblers, and again, you know, there's been a long campaign to address this issue in connecting with antisocial behaviour. I've been addressing problems this weekend, from ball playing on green areas to drug taking to scrambling in public parks and public areas. The calls regularly going into Grana Braher. To be fair to Brendan there and the team, they're addressing the calls in Grana Braher. Saturday afternoon, it's consistent, very consistent. But we need to implement the legislation that's been put in place, and we need the resources to do it. And I think I understand that there is a Garda scrambling quad bike available in Dublin. My information is that there is one, so I think if we can source that and have our community guard, those who wish to be trained in it, I think that might be another key intervention. CCTV has always worked in terms of addressing antisocial behaviour and fly tipping. You know, it has always worked, and again, I think there are resources there coming in to address that and have it put in place for to address the issues within the legislation, and I think that needs to be activated. And my last point is in relation to antisocial behaviour and the profile of communities and the profile of the city. Antisocial behaviour has been with us for the last 30, 40 years, and it's going to be with us for a long time. I'd say a lot of people here on the screens probably were slogging apples when they were younger, and that was antisocial behaviour. I've been 30 years in this field with An Garda Síochána, and Cork were to the fore in relation to addressing antisocial behaviour by the development of the Garda Youth Diversion projects. And I think when we're speaking publicly about this issue, we need to be careful about the label and image of our communities and of our city, because there are interventions that can be done, working like we are tonight, talking to each other, connected with An Garda Síochána. And I do think we need to go back to the model of the Auto Crime Diversion Project, similar was delivered by An Garda Síochána community initiatives and the probation service. I think that's the way to move forward, because we did, and I dare say it, mentioned the word joyriding, we did address it. We addressed it dramatically by changing the road structures in communities and by working with young people who wanted to have an interest in cars at the time. Now the interest is in bicycles and scramblers. And that's going to need an interagency approach. The model is already there. It was developed in Cork, it was developed on the north side, and I'd be happy to assist in any way I can in putting that model together, again, in developing that. And I think that's the way forward, working together and getting the issues addressed, because the people who are engaged in antisocial behaviour now are totally different to the kids that were involved in it 10 years ago. The community Gardaí will tell you that. And the kids who will be involved in antisocial behaviour in another 5 years' time will not be the same children or young people who are involved now. So there's a model there through the Garda Youth Diversion projects, through the Foróige projects, and through the Drug and Alcohol, through the Cork Local Drug Task Force. And in my book, that model has been successful down through the years, and we need to return to it. Thanks, Adrian, and I'm delighted that tonight's meeting has happened following motions that was put forward in Council. Come on, good. Well done.
Thanks, Councillor Fitzgerald. And just before I hand over there to Declan, Nash's Boreen, yeah, that's on the agenda with Ops, and we will be talking to them about it. I know it's been there a long time, but I suppose we have to find a solution somewhere. And I will talk to them about it. I think the CCTV has been dealt with, and the scramblers. I might hand over to you, Declan, and that just to close off on those issues. And actually, I can see Oliver Moore has his hand up. So, Declan, if you're okay to wait, I might ask Councillor Moore to come in there.
Thanks, Adrian, and apologies for sticking my hand up so late. I wasn't planning on saying anything because it's been a long evening and a lot of people have already said an awful lot. But I do want to thank the Gardaí and yourself for arranging these forums. And it's great to welcome new parts of the city, and this is the first time that Glen Mire has been represented at a forum like this. And I think it's been something that, you know, when after Glen Mire has came into the city, many of us had been telling residents there about these forums and the benefits of them. So it's good that it has started. It was actually the comment there by Councillor Fitzgerald that I wanted to kind of come in and kind of second him on, about the importance of the diversion for youth, and in particular post-COVID. And I think all the councillors have mentioned that, you know, that there's particular antisocial behaviour that has, you know, started during COVID, you know, and we all think that it is to do with, you know, the lack of activities for young people. And I have a concern. I think Councillor Marr mentioned this earlier on. I have a concern that after COVID has passed, that, you know, young people will have gotten into the habits of what they have picked up during COVID and the sort of antisocial behaviour that has picked up during COVID. And I think it will be important for us to put in place some kind of plan coming out of COVID, in order to divert young people back into, you know, positive activities in the communities. You know, it might not be enough that the basketball court's open and that the youth club's open and all that. I think we will have to put energy into actually actively diverting young people back to or back away from the antisocial behaviour. And it was the same, I think, at the start of the pandemic. There was an awful lot of attention given to you know, the effects of the pandemic on working people, the effects of the pandemic on older people. But we will have to now also concentrate on the effect of the pandemic on younger people, and also the need to put in place special provisions for young people as we come out of it, so that the antisocial behaviour that has developed during the pandemic is there, that they're diverted away from, and that we pay special attention to that going forward. Thank you, Adrian. I know that's probably an area under your remit more than the Gardaí, but it's something that I just did want to mention before the meeting closed.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Moore. And before I hand over to Declan, just to respond, I suppose, as you'll be aware, under the Community Response Forum, we were one of very few local authorities that actually put in place a dedicated youth response forum. And Stephen Murphy and the team inside in City Hall, along with Dimpna Murphy, who's on the sports and sustainability side of the house, we've been working very closely with a lot of the youth groups, and we'll continue to do so. I think you make a really good point. If there are habits that have been learned during COVID, we need to unlearn them as quickly as possible with young people, and I think we should start with them, because I think that's really important. So thank you. So Declan, I might hand over to you. I can't see any other hands up. So.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. I suppose just to go back to Councillor Fitzgerald's, and look, I might have said it already, but anything that will help to solve any problems in Nash's Boreen, interagency, or meeting with the landowners, you can take it. Garda Síochána is fully supportive of that, and we'll engage with it as well and be part of the solution. And I know you're in contact with Brian O'Donovan here and Brendan Kelly on a regular basis, so that will continue. And if we can find a solution, whether it's interagency in relation to the scrambler, scourge, or the quad bikes and this kind of stuff, that's, again, we'll be part of that. We have 4 dedicated juvenile liaison officers working on the north side, so they have a good handle on youths that are vulnerable and have drifted in, to crime and antisocial behaviour, and they feed into us as well. Particular areas and particular youths that have come under attention, and that will continue. But in relation to Glenmire and to Councillor, I think Glenmire is getting a better service than it was maybe 7-8 years ago when it was in under Cove. I think the fact that it's nearer, it's now in part of the city, the Mayfield cars, the Watercourse Road cars, they also respond to incidents in Glenmire quicker than maybe the Cove car was able to get to Glenmire. And I think that the numbers and the new station in Glenmire has obviously helped, and the numbers there have also increased. And as we said earlier, the opening hours of the station has hugely increased as well. So I think it's positive from that point of view in the policing. So I hope that covers those points.
Thanks, Declan. So I can't see any other hands up. So I suppose if nobody else would like to engage, I suppose it's just for me, I suppose, to close off this evening. I suppose I want to thank the Lord Mayor and Deputy Gould, the elected representatives, and the chairs of the community fora for being here today, and of course on Garda Síochána, and thank you all for working with us over the last number of weeks in putting the online submissions up there, and thank you for the engagement. We will feed back to you all through the Safety Forum chairs. And as I also said, if you have any feedback on today's meeting, if you thought it was positive, if you thought it was something that could form part of what we do going forward, as again, either as a blended approach perhaps, because I think people would still want that physical meeting. So so on that basis, I think I'll just say good night to everybody and keep safe, and thank you all.
Well
done.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night all.